A veteran Predator gets a second approach. Here's your look at the Hiya Toys Predator 2 Exquisite Mini Elder Predator V2. Exquisite Mini is a new standard setting series for 1/18th scale, featuring super articulation action figures under Hiya Toys. Before we get the review started for the Exquisite Mini Predator 2 Elder Predator version 2, the first thing we're going to want to do is take this tape measure of mine, measure it to the very top of his head. Yeah, I know, you guys know the drill by now. And we're going to measure off just how tall the figure actually stands. Stop it right there. If then looking at the screen correctly, I could then tell you that the Elder Predator version 2 is 5.5 or about 5.5 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, and you're looking at the Elder Predator V2 being 14 centimeters exactly. Standing these figures may prove to be a bit difficult, but we'll talk more about that in a second. In the meantime, for some comparisons, we can move over Elder Predator version 2, and hopefully he doesn't fall over, and we can bring in the Water Emergence Predator. You probably already can see, too, I'm leaning them forward just a little bit because they will have some problems standing. Don't worry, at least they come included with display stands. But why I also brought in Water Emergence Predator, we just recently had a look at that figure in a previous review, but it also serves me to show that you can see the two figures, they're pretty much using similar body molds, both in the torso, the arms, and the legs. The figure gets a bunch of cool accessories. We'll start first with the display stand. If you have certainly seen enough of these Hiya Toy reviews by now on this channel, you'll recognize this display stand just like that. I know we've seen these before. Same muddy terrain, same painted features, and same peg hole in the top corner there, or just off to the side. There's also some slotted areas there on the sides of the display bays, as you can see all the way around there, because they also come included with these eye brackets. I know, if you've already seen these reviews, you already know what these serve. But basically, you take the two eye brackets, you put them anywhere you'll want, really, on the bottom of the base, and then if you get yourself a second one of these bases, we'll just connect the two. You can also really do, and let's do it the other way here as well, you can also line these up and just hold them with your fingers, and then take the eye brackets and then just fit them in between. You do it that way as well. You don't have to put them in first. Whatever gets the job done, then go ahead and just attach those. You got yourself a larger display base they can display the figures on top of. So I like these, even if you don't want to use them necessarily for the Predators. But I will say, though, the Predators do really have to use these display stands. Specifically, the older Predator bodies, not the ones necessarily from the Predators 2, or the Predators with the S on the end of it, but the original Predators, like this body specifically, I will say really does make, you really will want to make use of this display stand. I'm going to put that to the side for the time being. We'll go back to that in a second. Let's have a look at the other accessories that come included with the Elder Predator version 2. You get yourself a combi stick, a really nicely extendable spear. Now, of course, right now it's in an extended state. You can't compact this, but certainly enough combi sticks that we have gotten with previous Predators. Hey, you can easily just display a smaller version of this with the Elder Predator if you want. It's got some nice detailing done to it. For the size of really what these are, they are really intricately detailed and painted quite nicely as well. This will fit into his hands. I'll talk more about that in a second. Other accessories that come included with it, you get the musket. And again, for its size, there's a lot of good paint happening here. Paint is pretty clean, too. Maybe a little bit messier on the barrel end of things, but certainly when it comes to like the handle, and is that the flint on the back there? It is a nicely little detailed musket. Again, you can hold it into his hands. Or really, you can also holster it, too. We'll get more into that in a second. He also comes with a small bladed weapon. It's not quite a sword. It's a very long knife. You can see it's got wrappings on the end of it, kind of giving almost a faux leather look to it. It's got some really nice paint going for it. And then he also comes with a couple of interchangeable hands. Now, I did cheat at the beginning of this review. He did technically have two gestured hands, or relaxed hands, in the sockets of his forearms. I already took the liberty of removing one of them with the other version of this, the mirror version of this hand right here, just so I could actually have him holding something at the beginning of this review. Let's go ahead and pick the figure up. There's a few things I want to talk about here. I'm going to bring his arms forward first, this one, and I want to bring everyone's attention to this really sick-looking sheath. The fact it's got the little skull on the top of it, that's such a neat looking design. It does have an opening to the top. The idea is you're really supposed to be able to fit the sword in there, but I will tell you, it's close quarters. Too close of a quarter for me to really try to fight to get that in there. You can bring the arm up as far as you can possibly get it, and just barely. You can try to get the sword actually fit in there. Let me just show you what's happening here. If there was a way, I don't think you can actually detach it. Maybe there are pegs. Oh, there are pegs in there. But then trying to get that back into place after the fact. There is a slot on the top. I don't know if you can actually see it. But for this space to this space is somehow going to be enough space to work with a blade. And I know that's going to get bent in the process. I haven't yet actually tried to put it in there because every time I have, I feel like I can't get quite the proper angle. Again, you can take the sheath right off completely if you want to. If you take it off, then you're just going to have to fight to get it back onto those peg holes. Now, you know what? We'll do this. We'll take it off. We'll just lay the figure down here for a second. You can take then the sword and slide it into the top. And then from there, you can go do your best to try to fit that back into place. Now, obviously, one thing that's also going to be happening too, which is something I would be fearful of, is, yeah, look how long the handle is. There's no way that you're going to be able to do both. To display the sword like this, unless you take one of the pegs, just off-align it like that, and attach it like on the side, like on an angle, maybe you could then successfully pull it. But then, of course, when you get to the leg articulation of the figure, then you're just going to be fighting with that as well. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and take the sword right out. It was there only to show you that it was possible to do it. Let's go ahead and get that plugged back into place. I knew I was probably going to now have problems getting that plugged back into place. Plug it in there. I'm sure it's, you know what, we may have to just leave it off for the time being because I know the moment I start moving his legs, it's going to come right off again. One more time. Let's try one more time. Yeah, it is not going to stay on there well enough to continue with the rest of this review. So I'm going to put that on after the fact. Make sure everything is lined up accordingly and then get that back into place for the final looks of the figure, but we're going to leave it off for the time being. The musket, you technically could also take, where did I put the musket? Right here. You could also holster the musket just underneath the sash, the little pouch that he's got. You can holster it like that as well, if you don't want to display it necessarily in the figure's hands. There's a couple of options available as well. And of course, being that I've already taken the time, the luxury to change the hand out, you can also take the musket and you can also put it into his hand as well. Or if you want to have him holding the musket like this, like he wants to hand it off to somebody, you can also do that as well. So those are the accessories that come included with the figure. I really knew this was going to be a problem trying to get that slid into the top of the sheath. But yeah, I'm just going to have to plug that in place after the fact. So let's get a closer look at Elder Predator version 2. We'll start first, obviously, in the places where we always usually start these reviews, and that's the face. For starters, I love the coloring. This dark charcoal coloring that they went with, not only just the face, but the rest of his body. It looks really good, especially when you're looking at the crest, the crown of his head, and you've got all the additional spotting work that they've done at the top of it in a lighter gray, and then you got the black in there as well. It does have some really interesting character going for it. Now, the mandibles here, of course, are open up, and then the inside, even like the interior of his mouth is very dark indeed. I'm hoping that the camera's able to see this. You can see there are his peepers. Very tiny predator peepers, but they have even painted in the pupils. I think that is an exceptional touch for something so small. But he's got a lot of dark colors going for him. I mean, everything that you're looking at on the figure, really dark shadows, shades, a black, gray. Of course, the exception, I'm sure to the rule, is the plasma caster shoulder-mounted cannon there that's mounted onto his back. That's more of a shinier silver. It does have posability going for it, so you can even move the gun itself. Rotates back and forth. You can also hinge it back and forth this way as well. It does have the necklace. Now, comparing it to the previously looked at water emergence predator that had some real plaguing problems of keeping that set on his shoulders, at least one thing that's going for the elder predator, it looks like they've got it in such tight quarters that you really can't move the necklace around at all. He's got two necklaces, but they're not going anywhere. And of course, he's got the one pouch there off to the side. That's, if anything, that's the only thing that's really going to be moving around on the figure. But it's not to the point where it's going to get in the way of things. Even if it falls down his shoulder, I'm having a lot less problems with this than I did with the water emergence version. He's got the gauntlet there on either side. The gauntlet does have the additional strapping there of leather. Let's actually see. There we go. Zoom in so you can see it. So that's some additional work that wasn't on the original Predators. And he's got the same thing happening here for the gauntlet blade as well. The gauntlet blade is extendable. So you just go ahead and pull that out. It doubles its size almost by, well, almost double its length. And then you can go ahead and just push that back in. Just be careful though. This is a little bit more of a softer plastic. Nice detail work certainly on the back. He's got the loincloth there. And the leather material. Side skirting armor. And he has the additional armor down below there on his calves. My takeaway from this, if I was checking off boxes of things I liked the most about this figure, number one is the coloring. The coloring is really good on this one. The dark, again, that charcoal color works really, really well with this figure. And it isn't even just the dark colors that work so well. It's the fact that they complement the colors with lighter colors. So things like his arms, for example, you've got that two-tone effect of the darker charcoal and the lighter coloring of the gray. And then you got the spotting work on top of that. More of that gets continued on down below in the lower legs there as well. He's got a lot of good coloring. Even though there's not a lot of pops of bright colors, he definitely has a lot of good colors going for him. So let's run through the posability here on Elder Predator. His head rotates back and forth. It is going to be, of course, a little bit limited because he does have the shoulder-mounted cannon on the other side there, but you can still get enough of a head rotate back and forth, and you can also move it up and down as well. Even like his dreads are a more darker charcoal gray. That looks really nice, especially when you've got the additional brown and gold in there as well. Upper torso is on a ball joint. You can rotate that all the way around. Despite having so much stuff happening on the torso, you can still get access in there and rotate that torso all the way around. He also technically has a secondary ball joint, but it's just hidden underneath the strapping there of his lower skirting. You can also move the arms up. I found like the arms were a little tight on this figure, so I may have to just take the hairdryer and heat that up a little bit just to soften up the joint. Right now, I can pull off at about a 45 to 50 degree angle. Softening up that joint, which I will definitely be doing, I could probably pull that up just a little bit higher than what it is right now. But you can move the arms all the way around. Certainly as well, he has the swivel in the bicep. Single hinged elbow. You rotate, more so it's just the way that it's assembled, but you could technically rotate his gauntlet all the way around, and you can also rotate his hands as well. Those are on ball pegs. Let's get those arms down. The legs split out. And of course, right now, if I had had the sheath still attached by those holes, the sheath probably would have fallen right off. Moving the legs forward and back. There's a swivel 3/4 of the way up the thigh. He has a double hinge on the knee. And then, of course, he has the articulation in the feet. Up and down, all the way around. And he also has an ankle pivot as well. Still, the construction of these figures, like the older Predator designs, and why I say older Predator designs is when we were looking at also the Predators with the S on the end of it, those Predators are a little bit bigger and bulkier. Going back to like the construction of these older Predator bodies, I will definitely suggest using a display stand. Something about these feet, they never seem to stay and keep the figure upright. A lot of times if you put him on just standing on his own, the figure will topple over, so I definitely would recommend using a display stand. After all, the display stands are included in them anyways by Hiya Toys. You might as well use them. Though it is pegged and it seems to be removable, I wouldn't really recommend trying to take the sheath off of his belt in order to fit the sword inside. First of all, the handle of the sword is way too long. It's going to just be in the way of things, and it's definitely going to bend the moment you already have it attached to the figure. And second of all, you never really can get the sheath back into place the first time you get it removed. I have successfully, I think, for the most part, gotten that sheath back into place. I don't know if I will want to put something behind it just to guarantee that the sheath isn't going to come off, but it really isn't the most practical design for sheath if it can't even really hold the sword that's intended for. So I'm probably just going to be displaying, I think, the Elder Predator with the sword in his hand, or the musket in his hand, or the combi stick in his hand. What I'm certainly saying, though, is he has enough accessories going for him that there's different options available if you want to display this figure on your shelf. He does have some really nice dark colors going for him. And really, though, considering the rest of the Predators we've looked at generally have a little bit of light coloring added, whether it be the beige or the brown in his body, Elder Predator, though, keeps things pretty dark. And about the only thing that's breaking up that dark charcoal and gray is all the additional strappings of leather and the loincloth that he has on his figure. And all the rest of it is really, like I said, those dark colors. And yet it works so very well for Elder Predator here version 2. Short of just the problem I had with the sword, I couldn't have been any more happier with how this one turned out. And he's a really nice looking figure, like I said, to be putting on display. A big thank you, though, to the folks over at Hiya Toys that provided the sample of the Exquisite Mini Predator 2 Elder Predator V2, which means version 2. Have you picked this one up for yourself? If you have, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of it, or based on this review and this review alone. Keep your peepers peeled to this channel, making sure as well you're hitting that subscribe button and turning on the bell notification, because there is reasoning to come back to this channel. Not only are we going to be looking at more figures, more collectibles, but we will also be looking at more Hiya Toys Exquisite Mini Predator figures. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.